The pendulum continues to swing for the Flames after they drop 2 more toughies in a row.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today, we're going to dissect the past 2 losses, as well as potentially moving on from like some fan favorite players to acquire someone like an Elias Pettersson. And Craig Conroy's hands are tied at this point, and a move has to be made. We'll dive into all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Flames. But first, make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcast, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. And can I just say how disappointed I am that Ryan Huska has moved away from not even like the every other game sort of situation. I understand why they started the season with that, but doing the win and you're in sort of thing was it made the most sense. And that's how it was for a while. And now we're just throwing Dan Vladar out there. Like, it doesn't feel like there's really any rhyme or reason for it. The game against, they've been at home. So I guess I'm just confused why Dustin Wolf isn't starting these home games. He did start the game against Nashville, but the one against Utah, there was really no reason for him not to start it. But I feel like we've strayed a little far from where things are supposed to be, or where it felt like things were going right. Speaking of going right, let's go incredibly wrong. They have given up 2 hat tricks in back-to-back games. Krause again in Utah, or against Utah, and Ryan O'Reilly in Nashville. It is so disappointing to see this team give up as many goals as they do, and they struggle to score 2 or more goals. And it is unacceptable at this point for them to just basically lay down and die. That's what it feels like. Like, there's like, yeah, whatever. Because the first period against Nashville, the lowest scoring team in the league, mind you, was good. Yeah, there were Kuzmenko did his little thing, but it didn't shift the momentum negatively in any way, really. The Flames were on the power play. They outshot Nashville. They looked like they were going to hang around and be the better team through the 60-minute game. And they weren't. I don't understand. No, I do understand why this is happening, and it's because they don't have the assets to generate high quality offense consistently. Consistently being the key word. And nothing's going to change until they make some changes, until they make some roster changes, whether it's losing players and getting some roster players back, or if you are experimenting with, trading a player. Sorry, Kuzmenko, you're getting brought up again, but if you trade Kuzmenko and you happen to get a roster player back for him, or I guess in a more likely scenario, it would be Rasmus Andersson for a roster player. But either way, nothing is changing until you bring someone in. Connor Zary has been phenomenal. Martin Pospisil, a ghost. I think, and I'm going to talk more about this coming up, but the fact that Kuzmenko has had the drop-off that he has had, along with Sharon Govich's inconsistency to score, is a big part of the Flames' struggles. It's not because the fourth line isn't scoring. The fourth line is not out there to score goals for you. That's a bonus. And you could tell that Kuzmenko was hungry to come back. He was so excited to, prove his worth and prove himself that he deserved to be in the lineup. And that's why he got put back on the power play unit. And then he takes a really bad, ill-timed penalty. And playing with a broken stick, I guess I wouldn't think that was in the moment. I wouldn't think that was against the rules, but I guess, again, you're in the heat of the moment, and he was pretty upset and emotional about it after the game. It's just another example of the veterans taking a poor timed penalty, and it really allowed the Predators to just fully run away with the game instead of being up by just one. I have a lot of concerns with a lot of what we're witnessing with the Flames on ice, and it always comes back to consistency and playing that full 60-minute game. Because you can't win a game in the first period, but you can certainly lose it in the second, and you can't just show up for the third. They've tried that. It's worked a couple times, but it's not a habit I want to see this team fall into. You need to show up at 100% that first shift to your final shift. I don't understand where the miscommunication is amongst this. And I understand you're lacking high-end talent, that elite talent that you had for years and years and years. So you could rely on that. But now you're out there looking for it. So you have to understand that this is what your team is without that elite talent. And there's certainly other ways to acquire it, but I'm not quite sure the Flames are going to fall far enough in the draft positioning to allow that to happen. But coming up next, we're going to talk about the Flames' untouchables, if you will, for acquiring a player like Elias Pettersson. And we'll be back right after this. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. I am not a football girl, but I will always, always, always take the Kansas City Chiefs. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. And could there be a new player on the horizons for the Calgary Flames? I think we're all pretty familiar with the drama going on in Vancouver, alleged drama. I guess JT Miller and Elias Pettersson are this has been bubbling for a few years now, and it's kind of reached the point of no return, and you don't want that. And Elias Pettersson is the player to move. Not only because I think you're getting the better return for Elias Pettersson that will help you immediately. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because there's this two constant conversations when it comes to the Flames. You know, do they tank to rebuild? Can they just retool? They need to be bad. They need to tank. And the topic of untouchables. And basically, the only untouchable Flame is, in my opinion, Dustin Wolf. I know that that's probably going to upset some people. I would hate to see a lot of these players traded as a fan, but as a business decision, if, you know, Vancouver calls up Craig Conroy and says, hey, Elias Pettersson has expressed interest about going to Calgary, and we have interest in, Rasmus Andersson and Kadri, and I don't know, someone down in the AHL. Do you do it? Yeah. Yes, because Pettersson literally fits the bill for what Craig Conroy has been looking for, a young center. And we know that those are costly. We know that those are expensive, and they don't come around very often. They're scarce. So get us something. Do it. Jump. It's like when you see something that's like limited edition and you're like, I have to get that. Do it. Whatever costed, like whatever it is. I don't think that Connor Zary is necessarily untouchable, but I do think that he is in that orbit. He is not the first. Like if they called for him, I would say, hey, can we offer you Martin Pospisil instead? He has versatility. He adds toughness. He plays with an edge. Blah blah blah. Is that something you're interested in? We know that Craig Conroy isn't afraid to pull punches. He traded Mangiapane out of nowhere, and then last season he made the decision to not trade Jacob Markstrom until the summer. I guess my thing is going to be what is your end goal? What is the goal? Because at the end of the day, we want this team to get younger. We want this team to get better. And we've done half of that. We're working on the whatchamacallit. We're working on the getting younger. We have successfully worked on that. But we're still crawling to getting better. And that is fine because that is something that we know does not happen overnight. And that is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and be upset that Ryan Huska isn't leading this team to the playoffs. Like, sure, they had a great start and they've had their ups and downs, but everyone is performing at a level that is unacceptable. Like, this team was never projected to make the playoffs. You were probably more likely to get struck by lightning than this team to make the playoffs. But we know that they have this contender mentality that they want to prove everyone wrong and they want to make the playoffs, which is fine. Do you, whatever the morale is in your workplace, good for you. However, if you're going to say that, you need to back it up. You need to make those trades. You need to trade a guy like Rasmus Andersson. You need to trade a guy maybe like Nazem Kadri. You need to trade some of these younger players that in a deal that's going to bring in the talent that you're looking for. And I don't enjoy saying that. As a fan, if I woke up and saw the news that, Matt Coronato was traded, I would be bummed out. I would be super bummed out. Not only because he's a great kid, but he's shown a lot of progress in his development. But at the end of the day, if we survived the Matthew Tkachuk trade, we can get through anything together. That is the way to look at it, right? And, love Matt Coronato, but losing Matthew Tkachuk was certainly more detrimental to the team, and we'll get there. We will get through it because that is life of a sports fan. And if it's a trade that doesn't make sense, then yeah, absolutely be upset about it. But if it's to bring in a player like an Elias Pettersson, yeah, Craig Conroy makes the right move, I guess. But I don't necessarily think we're going to see this right now. And we're going to talk more about what needs to change in making a move coming up after the break. But I feel like they are very much stuck between a rock and a hard place because you play well, you sneak into the playoffs, or you just miss the playoffs and your draft pick is in that mushy middle again. You start to play poorly, you're drafting better, but what does that do to the locker room? And I think one thing that I have to give the Flames organization as a whole credit for is how they keep the noise out of the locker room, and what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. It's not getting leaked to the media. There's no conversation, like you don't hear about this player saying this, or reports say Ryan Huska yelled at the team after this horrible, embarrassing loss. Well, like there's none of that. And the conversation regarding the team status does not, like what they truly think of themselves and what their true goals are, not just what they're telling the media. They don't get discussed. Everyone wants to make the playoffs because ultimately at the end of the day you're playing for the Stanley Cup. But is that a realistic goal for teams like the Flyers, like Columbus, like the Sharks, like the Ducks, like the Flames, like the Canadians? Is that actually realistic? And coming up next, we are going to wrap up the show with a conversation of moving forward, because we are stagnant and stuck, and it's time to throw it into overdrive, throw it in sport, and put your foot on the gas. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot that you were paying for, or maybe paying for twice? That has definitely happened to me, and I've had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money has made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals that you want to try to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me. Make sure you throw me a follow over on X and Blue Sky at Jess Belmosto. I rewatched the game last night, a little bit before recording this, and because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just emotionally responding to that game, because it was ugly. It wasn't good. It's embarrassing when you lose to a team. When you have Matt Coronato fighting, do you know how bad things have to be? The fact that this rookie technically is fighting Jonathan Marchessault, like, that's great. Like, try to turn the game around. But what are you doing? Neither of them are fighters. That was Coronato's first NHL fight. How do you let a game slip so far away and so quickly out of your fingertips that you have Matt Coronato fighting a Stanley Cup champion? Like, and it's not just like it's like some fourth liner. It is literally Jonathan Marchessault. And it could be something like that is something I would least expect from Coronato. That's something I would expect from Lomberg, from Pahal, from maybe Kevin Ball. Rasmus Andersson gets into a shoving match. Did I say Pospisil? Maybe Kadri. Like, Matt Coronato is not on that list. So something is not right. He is frustrated, rightfully so. And that's the thing is like every single game, it just bottles up and piles on top of another and snowballs and snowballs and snowballs into the next one. And that's when you have Martin Pospisil make a stupid, reckless decision. That's when you have things just completely come undone and you might lose the game 8-1. I mean, at some point the frustration has to go somewhere. And I think that last night against the Predators was very much that. And it's great that he tried. I mean, he didn't go down without a fight, but it's just it's very unusual. And we know hockey players are creatures of habits and they have their routines. They have their, there's a reason for everything they do. And for them to step outside of that usually tells you something's going on. And it might not just be him. It is very likely he's just frustrated with the situation, the losing, the dumb penalties, the lack of offense. He's always doing his best to score. And, I just, that whole thing was just that's when you knew something was wrong. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, something's up. But I guess my point is they are at the point where things are starting to get like out of the ordinary. I don't want to say suspicious because that sounds bad, but like things aren't what they typically are. They are straying from what we know. And that's not always a good thing, especially when it's something like this. And fighting is fighting, but for Matt Coronato to get out and fight, that is my quote unquote issue. That's why it raises an eyebrow. But I think this is all they needed to prove that something has to change. And Craig Conroy, get back on those phones and start making calls. You have some tough decisions to make. You need to be giving Dustin, I mean, this is ultimately Ryan Huska's decision, but you need to be giving Dustin Wolf a majority of the starts. We don't need to be seeing Dan Vladar as often as we do. If it's got to go back to the every other because you don't want to wear them out, that's fine. I don't care. But I feel like Wolf needs to be getting more starts and a bulk of the starts one way or another. And this current dynamic decision making, what have you, is not the way to do it, in my opinion. Dustin Wolf is your long-term plan. So let's start integrating him. So he knows the type of team that's playing in front of him probably for the next 2 years. I guess I know that they have said that they aren't interested in trading Rasmus Andersson. Kadri has kind of squashed all those rumors about him being traded. Mackenzie Weegar has done it a handful of times, but I don't think the Flames will trade Mackenzie Weegar and Rasmus Andersson. I think that it's just going to be Rasmus Andersson. And that unfortunately sends another message to your locker room, right? And that's the other thing you have to think about when making these decisions. And I think after last year, these guys understand, like, it's not personal. It is quite literally just the business. And tough decisions have to be made. And I hope that it doesn't, like, as the fan, I don't want it to happen, but at the same time, it's like, if we're going to get pieces to make this team better, then yeah, do whatever you have to do. So I guess really we just have to sit and twiddle our thumbs until Craig Conroy decides to pull the trigger on something. We can just keep hoping that, Vancouver has been in discussion, has had conversation with the Flames in terms of acquiring Elias Pettersson. But if that does happen, we know that it's going to be a haul, an absolute haul going back to Vancouver. And we'll probably, it'll be similar, if not more, than to what they gave us for Elias Lindholm. So it'll probably be more. So let's prepare ourselves for that, if that is such a thing that is on the team's radar. But regardless, it's time to start looking. Or you just ride this wave out and just suck until April. I don't know. I do not know. But I think you have to jump on this Elias Pettersson thing, should this be an actual thing. But that'll do it for me today on Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic start to your week, and I will see you all tomorrow. Stay safe, stay warm, stay dry, stay cool, stay hydrated, stay moisturized, and remember to be kind.